Welcome to Beyond the Book. I'm your host, JoAnn Dickinson, and today I am so excited to talk to award-winning and self-published author Jennifer Nestor. Jennifer is the creative force behind Jane Escapes to the Jungle of Individuality, a story that celebrates the beauty of uniqueness and self-acceptance, inspiring young readers to embrace their individuality with joy and confidence. I have to say, this is a subject, Jennifer, that is so near and dear to my heart. Some of my books have that same self-confidence and acceptance. And I think that is a huge topic today with kids, and I've talked to educators, moms, grandparents. It's at the top of every conversation. Let's start by sharing where you started. How did you get into writing books, or did you write in the past?
I started writing this book after graduate school. I was in a healthcare marketing job for a long time, and I've always wanted to be a writer and published author. And the idea came to me after hearing some issues that one of my friend's kids were having on the school bus with bullying. And I felt there wasn't a lot of content in the elementary level that really covered not only bullying, but then also a hint of anxiety and that self-confidence and all kind of combined. So, that's really what inspired me to write this story, was to be able to help kids understand that, yes, they might be different, but that's okay. And that we should all celebrate our uniqueness instead of feeling, shy or, worried about it or embarrassed.
Yes, I agree. I know when I was very young in elementary school, didn't really fit in, didn't have a lot of friends, or remembering going to a new school and who are you going to meet in neighborhoods. I think kids can relate to that. I just love your book. I love the message. I love the illustrations. Let's get into some of the questions that I have for you, because I can't wait to hear all about it. Let's start with Jane Escapes to the Jungle of Individuality. What inspired this story, and what message were you hoping to share with young readers through Jane's adventure? I love that Jane closed her eyes and she just fell into her world. And in today's world, sometimes it feels like a jungle to kids.
That's a great question. I think one of the things that inspired me to write this story was really my experience as a kid, getting bullied. I moved from Pennsylvania, so I had a really thick northern accent when I moved to Florida, and I just really didn't fit in at all with the kids here. So I struggled, in addition to just some things that I was experiencing at home and really leaving all my family and being an only child. So I think just having that inside of me really made me feel like I could relate to it. And then also, I was a mentor for Big Brother, Big Sister for quite some time.
Oh, I love
So I
that.
had a little sister here who was actually in middle school at the time. And, she told me a lot of stories about social media and things that were happening to kids at school. And I just felt really strongly that this message was needed. And that there weren't a lot of books on the elementary level that covered not just the bullying, but then also the anxiety and the self-confidence and that mindfulness component that this book has. And then lastly, just having transparent conversations with parents. I felt that that was a really important component to put in the book, that all these things might be happening, but you should talk about it, and here's why.
Absolutely. Your school visits are known for being interactive. And I don't know about you, they are my favorite. I feel like not only do we get so much feedback from kids and teachers, and I've had teachers come up to me and say, "Oh, I didn't know that." Can you share how you use educational resources and hands-on learning if you do that? I love creating personal worksheets that I give out, or different things that you might use for a hands-on workshop.
So for my school visits specifically, I partnered with a former educator, Kristen at the Bright Cookie, and we developed a 36-page resource that goes along with Jane escapes to the jungle of individuality. And the reason why I felt strongly about creating this was to not only go into the school and read the book and, have that interactive presentation with the character sticks I use, but then to tie all of the material together with these worksheets that cover things like celebrate your differences and worry jar exercises for the older kids where they can take a worry, place it in the jar, and then flip it into a positive thought. It's really covering both that self-confidence aspect with the celebrate your differences, and then the worry jar covers that portion of anxiety and how to turn it into something positive. So those are two worksheets that I use regularly at my school visits. The celebrate your differences is really more for first through third grade, just based on they're writing one word that they love about themselves in a balloon, and then we're clapping for everyone and celebrating together about those differences. And then whereas the worry jar, I say, is a little bit more advanced for that fourth to fifth grade level, because it really helps them connect with if they have test anxiety or other things, that we can talk about it out loud. And then I also have a physical jar that I bring for any kid that doesn't want to volunteer and say it out loud. They can write it on a Post-it note and then stick it in the jar. So it's just a way to get rid of that negative thought, turn it into something positive.
I love the worry jar idea and even the balloon. How original is that? Is your 6-page worksheet something you give to the teacher that they can use in their classroom as lesson plans, or do you pull from that and take that to a classroom?
That's a great question. It's a twofold. I do email the teachers the digital side of the resource. So we developed it where it turns into a Google slide deck so that the teacher can actually go and pull it up on a projector or her computer and then fill in the blanks in real time. Or the teacher can print out all of the slides in a PDF format. So I always give that to the school, and then I bring a specific worksheet that I feel will be good for that presentation or that grade level. And that's the best thing about having this, is it can be customized to kindergarten all the way through fifth grade, which is great because there's never a time where the class gets the exact same presentation or lesson plan. It's always something different and customized to the level of understanding for that specific grade level.
Well, that's great. At first, I thought 36 pages were a lot, but covering from kindergarten up to fifth grade, sometimes our books, the age is between 2 and 5 or 2 and 6. That's great that you have this one book that covers all the way up to the worry jar. I can definitely see, just having a granddaughter that's 11. Our granddaughter struggles with that. I think it's their peers that they have challenges with, and putting that worry in a jar and putting it away and thinking about positive. I love working with teachers and educators. My family is full of them, my husband's family. And that's why teachers and classrooms are so near and dear to me, is I think they need as many tools as they can in their toolbox to help those kids. That was a great conversation, Jennifer.
Gives the kids autonomy too. A lot of times what we'll do is we'll have one of the classmates solve the worry for the kids. If I'm Susie, I could say, I'm worried about test anxiety. And then someone would volunteer and be able to say, okay, Susie, you might be worried about test anxiety, but maybe you can write things on note cards, or you can study more, or we can have a study group. And it kind of gives them an opportunity to try and solve things for one another and build those relationships, which I've really enjoyed seeing the connection between the students too that way.
Absolutely. I had a teacher that I interviewed, and she talked about buddy classes they took. Second grade, she teaches second grade, and fifth grade coming in and buddying up with lesson plans and ideas. One of the themes you highlighted is mental health and celebrating what makes us unique. Why is it important for you to include those topics in your children's book? I know that you touched on personally. I think we can all relate to that personally, to empower young readers. Why do you feel that?
I can actually elaborate there. I think mental health and wellness is really important, especially from someone who has worked in marketing for healthcare companies and then also been a mentor. I have seen statistics that are extremely alarming, especially with suicidal thoughts, all of these different things that are extremely heavy for that age range. And being able to write content in a children's book that shows these things of dealing with anxiety. You mentioned earlier, Jane goes to sleep on the bus. The concept behind that is really, she is so anxious about being bullied by Eric on the school bus that she has panic and goes into this dream state where she finds herself in the jungle of individuality. And the story really rolls that way. But creating this world and these characters that all have unique features that typically people would be like, Tiger doesn't have a mohawk or Cheetah doesn't have a big red ninja bandana or whatever the case might be, allows Jane to lightly understand that these strong animals of the jungle all have things that make them unique. So it's okay for her to have that too. So I think weaving in mental health in that lighthearted way was really important to me. And then even toward the end with the waterfall of strength, taking that pause, having the mindfulness and really breathing through it and counting to 3. Those were all ways that I was able to weave in those mental health and wellness topics throughout the book, but where the kids can still understand on their own terms.
Conversations I've been having with other authors and even an editor, teachers that are taking their past and bringing that into, I didn't even realize how much I had experience from my past situations that happened. But mental health, I never even thought about that. I knew about your background and being in that mental health, but just the experience that you have experienced with children and people, I love that is a passion for you and where it came from. That's really special. That's unique to you as an author. And that speaks so highly to parents and grandparents and educators that you have seen for yourself in that field. I think that's just wonderful. Many children today are dealing with anxiety and fear of being different. How do you use your story in the classroom or visits to help kids feel more confident of who they are? I know that we touched on some of this, but if you have something more to share, I'd love to hear it. You have so much information, Jennifer, that I love everything that you're sharing.
A lot of times with my school visits, what I'll do is I'll start with describing myself a little bit and my background, but then I go into positive affirmations with the kids. So it's really a way for us to start on a positive note together. And I think I am unique, I am strong, and I am me. And then basically the kids will repeat those affirmations. And then I go into my work with the character sticks and I put them on different teams. So I'll be like, you're on Team the Tiger, Claire the Cheetah, Avery the Ape. And I hand out these custom character sticks. So it really brings the classroom together based on what animal character they have. And then I tell them that they're going on a mission through the jungle. We're going to help Jane get out. And
I love that.
Kind of get excited when you see your character and wave them in the air. Because typically with my story, as you've seen, the animals don't come in until a few pages in. So it helps the kids have a sensory thing to hold, but then also they're all waiting. Like they're excited and waiting to see their characters, beginning with those affirmations, going into the team kind of format, and then doing the reading allows the kids to be on the same page and start with a good, positive mission together. And then they're more vulnerable and open toward the end of the presentation to talk about things like celebrating your differences or whatever activity we do. So it creates more of a relationship between the kids too, because they're excited and they're on the same mission together.
Yes. I have a couple of questions for details. So do you create a stick of different animals, 10 of one animal, 10 of another, and then you divide them up and they all have their own character sticks? Or is it just one stick and then they're divided up into groups?
I will create a certain number of each of the 3 characters. I have a bunch of Claire the Cheetah, Avery the Ape, and Tim the Tiger, and then I'm randomly handing those out. So you don't want the kids to be like, I want this one or that one. Like they kind of get one, whatever one is in my hand, right? And then that creates an even playing field too. You might have more Claire in that class, and that's okay. You might have more of the tiger. That's also fine. But the kids get really excited and they're waiting to see who they get and checking with their neighbor. And if it's a younger class, which I've seen with VBK and kindergarten, really what I'm trying to do is get their focus and attention on make sure you're looking at your character. Who do you have? Wave it if you have this. Like it's a practice for when we go into the story. So they're all different and you never know what you're going to get.
That sounds like so much fun. You have been so creative with your ideas, Jennifer. I know I lay awake at night thinking of new ideas. Do they just come to you or do you get them from somewhere or maybe an educator?
That's what makes me most excited about this. I want to say it's not a job, and I feel like it's a purpose. Having that marketing and communications background, my brain is constantly going, what's next? What kind of idea? I've really enjoyed the creativity of developing resources for the class. And even when it comes to writing the story, just trying to think of what can I incorporate that Victoria, my illustrator, is just going to make look amazing and that the kids are going to get excited about. So I felt like with the characteristics, it was a unique way of having them participate in the reading because my book is a longer read. So it's a great way to not lose their attention because they have this thing from a participation standpoint. The ideas are just always going, which could be a good or a bad thing depending on where I'm at and what my job is at the time.
Well, it says a lot about us, about passion. I know when I'm writing a book, I'm always thinking ahead, whether it's another book, whether it's a worksheet, whether how could I incorporate that. I'm sure educators really value all of that and the creativeness behind it. That is so special, Jennifer. I appreciate you sharing that because not everybody wants to share their wonderful ideas. You mentioned about a new book, and I am so excited to hear what's next for you because I think you knocked this book out of the park. I can't imagine, but you can go off at so many different, what I call different trails for a book. Do you want to give us a little sneak peek or an idea who's Jane going to meet next or where she's going?
Sure. This book is a continuation of the Adventures of Jane's Imagination is the series. There will be more books with Jane as the main character. They are all resiliency / social emotional learning based. So they'll have different components of SEL. The second book, we are currently in the illustration process right now. Victoria is working on sketches. The way that she operates, it's really black and white sketches first, and then we go to color. And so we have a human supporting character in book 2. I have shared on my social media recently that we are going to meet Molly, who is going to be Jane's closest friend at school in book 2. And the setting is really exciting. I plan on announcing it soon and sharing the cover, but it will be at school this time. It's just a outdoor adventure. So it's going to be a lot of fun. I can't wait. And I know a lot of people are concerned or curious, will the animals still be there? I can safely say yes, they do make an appearance. They're just not the main 2 characters of this book. But for those who love Tim and Avery and Claire, they will be showing up in really fun ways for book 2.
I love that she has a friend now, too. She has other friends, a human friend. I can't wait. I want to hear all about your illustrator, how you found her, how you started collaborating. It's so hard, Jennifer, to find a good illustrator. I can tell that you're like I am. I'm very particular of who I work with. I don't want it to look like somebody else's illustrations or something that was computer generated. And I just love, she is so talented. I love the illustrations.
Victoria Mickey is my illustrator. Initially found her in 2024 when I was looking for an illustrator. I went on SCBWI's website because I'm a member. So I was looking for children's illustrators there. I found her portfolio online. It was one of the featured portfolios of the month. And I looked through her work and I felt like the style of illustrations that she's able to develop, especially with animals at the time, was really beautiful and vibrant and had great detail. So I reached out to her and we've been working together pretty smoothly. This second book, her process is doing the black and white sketches first, and then we move on to color. So right now we're still in the sketching process, but I will say that as an author, it's really important to do your research and due diligence of looking up these illustrators' background, asking about contracts. A lot of the illustrators are not US based, so Victoria is one of those. So being able to be flexible with the time difference and what is your best avenue of communication? Do you want to talk through Instagram, or making sure you establish that in the beginning before working together, I think has really helped us be able to stay tight-lined in what the goal is of the project, what we're looking to achieve, and then trying to provide the most clear feedback as possible as we go through the approval processes too.
Absolutely. Is your illustrator, and this is a personal question for me because I've worked with illustrators both ways. Does she give you full copyright or does she remain the copyright? And I don't know if our listeners know what that question means, but a full copyright is once the illustrator has created the illustrations, she turns over the full copyright to the author. And I don't know about you, but that's really important to me. I've worked with illustrators both ways, and your hands are really tied when you don't get that full copyright, whether it's posting, whether you're reselling, creating. I see a doll, a stuffed animal in the background. If you have a contract that you don't get that full copyright, for those who don't know, you've got to get that approval, or I paid an additional licensing fee for that. So share with that with our listeners.
I have full reign to use anything from the book and then the characters. I've been able to produce the dolls. I've done other types of like bundles. I've been able to do character cutouts, certain signage. I think that that's really important, especially when you're marketing your book. I think a lot of people assume that once the book is live on Amazon, that it's going to sell itself and that all of these marketing elements don't matter. But in reality, that is the most important thing, is having the rights to be able to leverage your character so that if you want to make a franchise or you want to pitch your book to, say you want to go big and pitch it to a certain TV station or whatever, right? You have the ability to do that. And I think that it's important to double check your contract. And if you don't know legal, have someone else look at it. There are services online that you could pay a small fee where they will take a look at the terms in the contract. And I would also add to this that not just with your illustrator, but if you are going to use any type of print on demand service or order your books overseas, like when it comes to the books themselves, like also looking at terms and conditions there, because sometimes they might own the right to distribution for certain things. So yes, it was really important to take a look at the contract and own the rights to Jane and everything I can produce in the future.
Absolutely. And never work with somebody without a contract. I've experienced that as well. And sometimes it works out. If you're working with somebody overseas, they don't want to get, for whatever reason, they don't want to be tied to that contract. And as long as you can get something in writing saying you can do whatever you want, you own the copyright, but without that contract, you don't have anything to stand on. What's one piece of parent-student feedback that stuck with you, Jennifer, and did it inspire you to implement something new as an author? I had a couple of suggestions when I was in schools that somebody asked me why I hadn't written a chapter book, or if I was going to write a chapter book. And that prompted me, oh, I need to write a chapter book. But share with me if you had anything that sparked a great idea or an idea in one of your books or your packages that you share.
I think the coolest thing has been the positive feedback from the teachers themselves and then also the deans at the schools. Getting that email as a follow up, students really enjoyed the presentation. They were engaged. We really enjoyed the celebrate your differences worksheet or something of that sort. Really fuels me to create more things that are creative for the next visit. I really love when the class asks. I do a Q&A at the end, and I've had quite a few classes say, when's the next one coming out? Are you going to give us any information about that? And that really makes me jazzed. I did give a sneak peek of the title to one of the groups because they were so amazing. And I was like, just so you know, it's going to be this. And the school was like, we can't wait to see you in the fall when you launch it. So that was really cool. But I think specific parent and student feedback, what I've loved the most is when a child has similarities to Jane. So maybe she's got big glasses or curly brown hair. And I've had some really heartwarming moments at events where a mom has said, this is the first time we found a book where my child is represented. And she came up to me and said, like, oh, she looks like me. And that means so much to me, especially when there are a lot of kids that do wear glasses and they don't see themselves in literature for their age. So that was probably the most heartwarming thing that has been said. And then anytime a parent says that my kid has experienced bullying and they've read your book and it really helped them, or it has helped me have a conversation with them, it makes me feel like I am living out a purpose in a different way.
It is. I always try to explain it, but it's so hard sometimes to explain about even doing these podcasts, Jennifer. I'm so excited to meet the people that I communicate with on social media that we can actually sit down, have a conversation, and learn more about each other and become closer. It's just something special in our heart, regardless how much money we make. But it doesn't matter. You don't look at that.
Yeah.
Do you have a book of Jane's Escape? Share that. I love the cover. I think that's so eye-catching and all of the information on the back. Share with our listeners where they can find you, Jennifer, your website, your social media, where they can follow you.
I am on Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. At Jen Nestor, author for Facebook and Instagram, and Jen writes children's books for TikTok. And my website is jennestorauthor.com. There you can find really cool bundles with autographed books. In addition to there's educator packages, the resource that we talked about earlier, you can see an example here of some of the other worksheets that's on there. And that is also for sale for teachers to purchase on my website for those who don't do an author visit. I am on Amazon, barnesandnoble.com. It's always wonderful when people can leave reviews to help spread this story and really help the algorithm get the book out there.
Absolutely. Is there anything that I didn't cover, Jennifer, that you want to mention to the listeners?
I just am so happy to be here and to be able to talk to you about this book. I am really excited about book 2, and my hope and goal with this series is to really help kids understand that their uniqueness is what makes them really special. And if I can continue to do that through school visits or online videos or conversations like this, that's something that makes me happy and helps me continue to be motivated to write content.
I love that, Jennifer. Thank you for taking the time today. I know you're a busy lady, and I really appreciate you sharing everything that you've shared. We would love to have you back and share your new book when it comes out. All the details. Thank you. Take care.